So you've created your first AI agent, but a question I get asked a lot, especially with sales use cases, is how do I actually connect this to HubSpot or my CRM? That's something we'll be exploring in this video today. I'll show you with HubSpot as an example, how to connect your AI agent so that HubSpot can actually trigger a workflow in Relevance AI, and Relevance AI can export that data back into HubSpot. Stick around to the end. I'll actually show you an AI agent that I built that really helps to get these connections going. I built this agent Hercules that helps with the setup of the API calls so that you can test them, generate them, and even chat back and forth with the agent if you're not too sure how to set things up. So let's say you have an AI agent just like this one that performs in-depth research on an account and produces a report. It pings a lot of different data sets like Google, LinkedIn, scraping websites, reading PDFs, and as you can see over here, produces an executive summary with a lot of information about a company. How do you actually trigger this workflow to happen from your CRM and also push that information back into that company so that you can update the fields and enrich the contacts and the company? If you'd like an overview of how I built this AI agent, I did make a video about this before on an AI agent that can actually research any company. So feel free to check that out. I'll be linking it down below. But once you've created an agent like this, there are typically 3 ways that you can start off the process of researching a company. First one is starting a new task and just typing in, for example, a company name or a LinkedIn URL from scratch. You can also give it a bulk list in, for example, a CSV format or a knowledge table where you give it a lot of different company names and LinkedIn URLs. But the third way, and the way that I would consider to be a real autopilot, is to actually use these triggers over here. So in this trigger section, we can connect HubSpot, and we can connect a lot of different things as well. For example, triggering through emails or calendar events or recurring schedules. But let's say every time a company is created in HubSpot, I want to enrich that company. We'll be using this as one of the examples of how to set up a trigger. So if I go into HubSpot right now and click that, you just need to select an account. I've already got mine logged in, but you can add one as well. Very simple authentication process. I'll select my existing account and then click this to continue the trigger. And now this window will prompt us to generate a JSON that I will actually put into HubSpot as a workflow. So I'll click this button over here. Now we've got this blob. So keep this open in one window. Then I'll navigate over to HubSpot. So in HubSpot, there is a section over here under automation that is called workflows. So you'll want to click on this and just make sure you're on the right tier or you have the right admin permissions. I believe that you need to be a super admin to actually get this to work. From here, I'll click create a workflow and I'll go from scratch. So in creating this workflow, firstly, we have to decide what is the trigger event. One of the most common trigger events, for example, is when a company is created. That's typically a really good event because when that company is a new record in your CRM, it's pretty empty. There's no research on the company. Perhaps there's just a company name or a LinkedIn URL, and you want to do research on that company. And so what you'd want to do is that every time data is created, so when data changes over here, you would go and say record created when a new record is created in the CRM. Check out the full list of these and click through them and experiment if there is something else that you want to try. But we'll just go with this right now. As the object, I can select a lot of different things. Right now, I'll select the company. So whenever a company is created, that is now the trigger event. And I'll click next. I can add a bunch of different conditions if I want to, but right now we'll keep it super simple. So once that is created, we're now looking for what happens afterwards. So when this company record is created, what happens then? If you're looking to configure this in Relevance AI, what you've got to do is scroll down. And if Relevance AI is not already an integrated app, just go ahead and install that. But since I've already got it here, I will select it. And as of now, agent trigger 6 is what you want to go with. So select that. And then we come up to this field here, which says API key blob. So what do we put here? That is exactly what we had to generate. So I'll actually just copy this over here, come back and paste that in. Next up is a message. So what this message actually is what the agent is going to receive every time this workflow is triggered. What I mean by that is every time a company name and a LinkedIn URL come through to the agent, that starts a new task. This is the message that it's going to receive. So I want to make sure that all the fields that I want mapped to the agent are in this message. And how I can communicate that effectively is firstly by labeling. So I'll say company name. I'll even say LinkedIn URL. Basically any information that you are able to provide the agent to start off with. And then I can find the text properties in here. So we actually have a company name. And so that's being patched in. And then I'll search for LinkedIn company page. And I'll put that in there. So now, just to reiterate, every time a new record is created, the company name and the LinkedIn URL of that record will be sent to the agent. And this is what the message will actually look like. and these will obviously be replaced by the actual records that exist. Feel free to add more in if there's other pieces of information that you can provide from your CRM, but typically these two are good enough for a lot of research processes. Most important is actually the LinkedIn URL, because a lot of company names can be quite generic. That's why we try to provide at least 1 or 2 different data sets. Then I'll click save, and that is actually the end of the trigger. It's really that easy. I can then go and click review and publish, and pretty much just breeze through all of these different options. Unless there are, again, very specific things that you want to happen, I just tend to skip through a lot of these. And so we go next, 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 and then we can turn it on. Now that the workflow is on, this agent now, if I click continue, and I can enable work hours if I want to, for example, work days or work hours, but I might just keep it working all the time. Complete. So now every time a company is created in HubSpot, it will send a message to my agent that will look something like this over here. So a company name, for example, this, and then a LinkedIn URL, and then it will kick off the research process and then provide the report. Now that that has been set up, we can go back to the workflow, make some edits if we want to, but we can also enroll some companies that already exist just to test this thing out if you want to, or even retrospectively put through a list of companies. So you don't have to count on this thing only doing new companies. You can actually choose a list of companies to enroll, and it can go and retrospectively enrich and research those companies. From here on, my agent will now start to receive all these companies and begin its research process. From here, the next step is, okay, what do we actually do with the information that we've received in these research reports? I'll show you a very simple example of what we can do with this report over here. Let's say I get an executive summary, a company overview, growth indicators, financial profile, and a bunch of other things. I'll show you how you can edit at least one of these fields in your CRM, and then it's up to you to pick and choose how many more you want to add to that. So if we're going by this example over here, I created this company just now and added the LinkedIn company page. We've already got this triggered by HubSpot, and the research process is beginning for the company. The next step would be to edit one of these fields over here. So let's say I wanted to edit the industry or the country or the annual revenue or the description. So what I'm going to do from here is create a new tool that will update the company in HubSpot with the specific variables that we want. There are a lot of pre-made tools and templates, but for the purpose of the video, I'll actually show you how to create these from scratch. And that is where the AI agent that I created will come in handy. So I made this AI agent over here called Hercules that is basically prompted to help you set up these API calls. So I'll create a new task and ask Hercules, I want to update certain variables in a HubSpot company, for example, industry, description, annual revenue. So this agent's actually going to ask us certain questions and get us to clarify our need and then help us to create the new properties. So it's asking us a few questions. How will you identify which company to update? What are the property names and where are the new values coming from? So the company to update is, for example, that one that we had just researched. And whenever you trigger something from HubSpot, there is an associated ID. You can find that ID over here. And so it's an object ID. But the agent can actually see this in the thread, so you don't need to click that and see it every time. But we just know that it is included in the request, so that's not a problem. So I will inform it that we will have the ID. Number 2, the property names. For the properties you mentioned, do you know the exact property names? And I can actually say, no, I don't. And it will actually go through the schema of my HubSpot account if I authenticate it and find the IDs. So these are the actual internal IDs, the property names, the variables that we want to fetch and be able to patch back into. So if you do know them, if you've been through your properties and your settings before, that's super useful. But if you don't, you can actually say no and it will search through them for you. So number 3, where will the new values come from? I will have researched these through an AI agent, and we can click go. So now it's going to help us find all the company property names from the ones that we asked for. So I can just give it permission to do so, click yes. And this next step will require you to authenticate your account. So firstly, it's just confirming what type of object, and it is indeed a company. And then I'm asking for the different types of things. These are from my queries. This is from my query earlier. Click approve. I've already authenticated my account, but if you haven't, it'll just prompt you to do so as well. And don't worry, I'll be providing a link to this agent that you can use in the link below. You can clone it into your account. And obviously if you clone it, it's yours and it's on your account. So no one else will see any of your information, of course. So just looking at this update, it looks like it was a success. And if we look over here, it was able to retrieve the IDs, and those are the IDs over there. And it's actually been able to get the property names for us and create the API call configuration too. So this is actual guidance on how to create an API. So when you create your tool in Relevance AI, you'll need these 4 inputs: company ID, industry, description, annual revenue. We can even get it to test the API call now. So this is a really cool thing about this agent. We can emulate this API call as a once-off and test it. So I can click go and test this API call, and then we'll see that it actually works. And then we can just mimic this in a new tool in Relevance. So this is the test API call. I won't actually run it because I don't wish to update anything right now. But as you can see, it's put in the patch method, the relative path, and the body. So we'll look at the guidance that we have above and create a new tool in Relevance now that can update the company properties. What I'll do now is go into tools and create a new tool in Relevance AI. So over here in the Tools Studio, I'll just build a tool from scratch and type in update company in HubSpot. The key step here is the API call. There is actually a specialized API call for HubSpot. So if you search in HubSpot over here, we've got these tool steps. You can click HubSpot API call and expand that out. Basically, you just need to verify your HubSpot account and then select your method, put in the relative path, and then body. But I know that if you're not too technical, this can be a little bit confusing. So that is what this agent here is for. Basically, we can take the method, relative path, and body here as inspiration, and then use that in our new requests. So that's the great thing about this testing. If we look up here, we've got explicit advice on how to do so that the agent has given us. So I'll take the method, set it as patch, put in the relative path over here, and then the body I will copy and then place in here. And it's almost as simple as that. There's just a few more things we need to do. You need to authenticate your account. So I've done that. Then scrolling out, there's a few inputs that we need to fill in. So how is the agent actually going to fill in the industry, the description, and the annual revenue? We need to create the inputs so that when the research process takes place in that AI agent over here, for example, it actually reads through this and can read that the industry is wellness and fitness services, that the annual revenue is, in this case, not publicly disclosed. And it can also read the other piece of information that we're looking for, like a description, and accurately match those to the inputs. So this is the agentic side of things. So ideally, this tool will include inputs that expect these values and will then patch into the API call. And if we look at what Hercules instructed us to do, it says when you create your tool in Relevance AI, you'll need these 4 inputs: company ID, industry, description, annual revenue. So we'll do just that. I'll grab the company ID and create a new input called company ID. And these tags here are just the variables by which you can label things and connect them. The reason why we need a company ID is because over here in the relative path, it needs to know which company to edit. So over here, I'll just remove this, which was a little placeholder, type in my curly brackets and select company ID. So for example, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4 over here, it'll go, because this is the tag company ID, into this relative path. So when you've triggered that HubSpot workflow and we had that ID from earlier, it'll get patched into here, which will then get patched into this relative path, which will update the correct company. And now for the rest of the fields over here, like industry, description, annual revenue, we'll create some inputs as well. So I'll add these 3 in here and I'll say one is industry, one is description, one is annual revenue, and I'll try to just use the same exact naming systems as well. So industry, because this is already in here, we don't have to change anything in the body, just as long as the namings match. So ideally now we have all of these different fields that when the agent receives that information in some form in its response through that research summary, it'll know to put these in here. If you want, you can add a bit more information, like in this sub description here, the industry of the company, and you can just basically describe this. These inputs help the agent to actually understand what to put inside the inputs. So if I put in the description of the company, the annual revenue of the company, it might be slightly overkill, but these kinds of things can really help to clarify when there are very similar fields. I'll now save my changes, and we should have a fully functioning tool that will work to update the company. And so I can actually test this and go over to this company over here and select the ID, paste that in there, get the industry as well, get a description. Annual revenue is not publicly disclosed, so we will just, for the sake of the test, put in 0, and then we'll run the tool. Now, an error has popped up, and it's really important to see these and anticipate where they may happen, because over in this company, this is actually a drop-down field with certain options. And so if we're going to fill this out, we need to make sure that this is either an open text field or that the options that we're putting in here match what is in the CRM. There's a few ways around this one. It really depends on your exact setup because every setup might be different. But if we go over here, there is a list of different industries. and there's a list of different industries over here. So you can provide your agent with the list of industries that you've chosen, or keep this as an open string. It's really up to you as to how complex you want to make this. If you make it an open string, it's probably a bit easier. But if it's a drop-down list, then you might want to just get the list and provide it to the agent as its options. And again, that is where this description field up here is the most useful. But right now, what I outlined over here is that health, wellness, and fitness is the name of the category. So if I run this again now, putting the tag in that was recommended, click run, we have success. And so it is updated annual revenue to 0, description over here is updated, and industry as well. If we go into HubSpot and I refresh the page, there is now a new industry category, description, annual revenue, etc. So just make sure that everything between your CRM and relevance is reconciled and makes sense. For example, those category names, anything that's in a drop-down that has certain options, just make sure to get the tags and make sure that the agent knows that. And you can always ask Hercules, that AI agent that I made, to help you with this as well. Because what we'll do from here is, now that we know this tool works, I'll save the changes and then go into my AI agent over here in build, and then say at the end, when you've completed your research, I want you to use, and then we'll find that tool name. So I think I'll search HubSpot and update company and HubSpot to update industry, annual revenue, and description. So looking at this output, there's obviously a lot more that you can fetch from this agent. So if there are more and more things that you want to build out, you can simply go back to this tool, make it a very specific one for this agent, and then in that body of the tool over here, add in all the different variables that you want to update. And again, you can ask Hercules, the AI agent, to do this for you as well, creating a new body based on all the different properties that you have in your company in HubSpot at the moment, and all the different data sets that you'll be getting with your research, and then how you can actually update those in HubSpot with this. So all you need to do is edit that, save it, and then it should apply to the agent. Just make sure that the instructions over here, just to be 100% safe, say all of the different things that you want to update, and it should fill in all those different fields each time the research process is finished. Now, again, this is just one part of all the different things that you can do with HubSpot. So I know there's a lot of other things like updating companies, updating contacts, deals, etc., and doing a lot more complex actions. All of that is in the API docs, and that one agent is actually taught how to use those API docs. And so if you want to explore other things, that agent can really help you to unlock a lot of different use cases with HubSpot. But I just thought I'd show you the simple logic of how to trigger an agent with HubSpot and how to push information out into HubSpot. The reality is a lot of these principles will apply to a lot of the other CRMs out there, like Salesforce, Adio, and many others as well, Zoho CRM, for example. So hopefully this skill is very transferable and you don't need to do it too many times. And of course, this kind of setup you only need to do once if your research process is already pretty well scoped out. You can get a clone of this in the description below. And I'll also link you to a resource library that contains a lot of different AI agent clones that I am making and that you can take and that will work out of the box. If this video is useful to you, please do give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this. And of course, if there are things that you want to see covered on this channel that aren't already, I'm aiming to put out a lot more content on Relevance AI and AI agents. So just let me know in the comments down below if there's something you want to see in particular, and I'll make it happen.